what we do is we identify high growth potential locations where government is spending massive infrastructure projects. We advise our investors to go and block on those areas before these big projects completes. And then what will happen is when these big projects actually complete, the area property price will go up, yet you actually secure the investment before that price growth. So you can enjoy the capital growth. So we identify those areas which are high potential on that type of investment growth.
If you could list the opportunities available for investors in Australia, what would these opportunities be?
Always advise people to how to benefit out of property investments, and now we have diversified that into commercial investments, and also Sri Lankans who are diversifying the businesses into Australian market like that, into the Australian market. So opening the doors for the Australian markets. We were very pleased to help Sri Lankan corporate sector which are planning to diversify into Australian market.
If you think out of the box, there are many innovative ways of investing. In this episode, you can learn about investing in property in Australia and also about diversifying your businesses into Australia. So to find out more about this, I will be in conversation with Sanjika Abeyratna. He is the chairman of SA Thomson Neris. Welcome.
Thank you, Alanki. Thank you for having me on your program.
Yes, this is indeed not the first time, but I'm very pleased to have you because I do feel that there's a lot of light you can shed on this topic. So my first question is, I know the election is coming up in Australia in May, but before we touch on that, let's talk about why an investor or a foreign investor or an expatriate should invest in Australia as opposed to another country.
The reason for looking at a investment destination is mainly your returns. So when you're getting high return, what's important is how secure is your investment when you go out of your country and do investment. So I think Australia is one of the safest destination for any sort of investment, not only property but many other different types of investments. And Australia now, compared to the rest of the world, Australia regulatories, it's everything is governed by the regulatory body. So I would say very minimum, less corrupted and corruption. So your investment is secure. And also it is a country where mainly policy driven. So, for example, you have policies today, but if the election in May change the ruling party, doesn't mean that it's going to change what has been approved. There's a vision and a policy
and there will be a continuation.
There's a continuation. And at the same time, the stability of the economy is very important where you are investing. And also it is a country that you can't change things when you go to invest in Australia because such person or higher up in your political ladder. Those things are actually immaterial.
Right.
So we have rules and regulations, so we have policies and the stable economy, AAA rated economy. And Australia, if you look at the economy, is the first country in the world which came out of the recession after COVID-19 global pandemic. So all of these factors giving a good bunch of reasons what to consider Australia, and we have been showing and again it is a country, the economy is driven not only by few factors, but it has the tourism, has the natural resources, it has the migration, student, business and agriculture. A lot of factors are actually driving the economy, which creates a stable and steady economy as well. So all of these factors, I think, is the very good reason to look at Australia as an investment destination. And Australia has been one of the world highest FDI, foreign direct investment attracted locations among the globe. So it is giving a secure investment for your investments. At the moment, Australia, there are some visa conditions impacted because, for example, business migrations have been on hold just to help the local people getting into the property market, mainly because there's a perception that foreigners coming and buying, which make it more difficult for locals to buy property. That's why recently there was the change. I want to highlight that there was an announcement that banning foreigners buying existing properties. So we always had the opportunity to buy the brand new properties, but now foreigners cannot buy existing properties even you pay the relevant fees. So that gives more attention to the brand new off the plan properties. But with this political change, whichever party comes to the power, I think Australia as an investment destination and the potential remains the same. And there are different ways they are trying to achieve the same goal, I would say. And we've been having a AAA rated economy, and at the same time, inflation figures start to come down. Now we have reached the below 3% mark, which resulted giving a rate cut in the interest rates, which adding the fuel to the people's affordability, so then people can afford more properties, which is helping to drive the markets as well.
I think you did emphasize on an important point, because there is a misperception perhaps that you can't buy property in Australia, but like you said, you can buy brand new property in Australia.
Alanki, that was the fact all along, where the government allowed foreigners to buy brand new off the plan properties. So that means actually the theory behind it. So when a foreigner come and invest in property in Australia, so that will help to the economy, because that will fuel a new construction, that will create job opportunity, that will create improve the construction industry and all of these things. That was the case. So it's never allowed foreigners to buy local properties. But a couple of years ago, they changed the regulation. You have to pay extra $46,000 to get the approval to buy a existing house for any non-resident in the country. So now recently, a couple of weeks ago, they banned that for 2-year period, where you can't buy existing properties.
But you can buy brand new.
You can buy brand new, and that was the demand anyway, because when you buy brand new properties, I can explain later, where we have strategies on high growth potential, longer settling property investment policy, where you can get the capital gains by investing on a small deposit. So that was the demand all along, and I think that will continue. That is already still there.
So Sanjika, if I'm to ask you, if you could list down, if you could list the opportunities available for investors in Australia, what would these opportunities be?
I think the majority, I mean, we are in the property investment advisory space. So we always advise people to how to benefit out of property investments. And now we have diversified that into commercial investments, and also Sri Lankans who are diversifying the businesses into Australian market like that.
So you take Sri Lankan you help to facilitate the process of taking Sri Lankan businesses into
the Australian market. So opening the doors for the Australian markets. That's we have been very successful on that. So we were very pleased to help Sri Lankan corporate sector, which are planning to diversify into Australian market. But coming back to the previous question, Alanki, the property investments, we go with the tagline of smart investments. So anyone can do a property investment. If you look at the overall figure in Australia, property prices were within last 50 years, it was a continuous growth. We have ups and downs during different economic conditions. But if you look at the overall graph, it was a growing graph. But within that, how can you be smart is what we are specializing. How to do smart investments, smart property investment within that property investment space. So what we do is we identify high growth potential locations where government is spending massive infrastructure projects, and we advise our investors to go and block on those areas before these big projects completes. And then what will happen is, when these big projects actually completes, the area property price will go up, yet you actually secure the investment before that price growth, so you can enjoy the capital growth. So we identify those areas which are high potential on that type of investment growth. And some people look at apartments near universities, house and land, which has a lot of high growth potential on your investment. And then commercial investment, warehousing, and also we have portfolio investment where you can invest on a commercial assets which already had secured tenancies for long term period, where you continue to get the growth income, and then after certain time period you can sell off those commercial properties. So we actually diversified into all these investment opportunities. I mean, if somebody need more details, we'll have to go into their personal requirements as well, but overall we were offering those services.
So, I mean, there's a very high number of Sri Lankans living in Australia. So is it possible for them to reach out to you as well?
Yes, actually, Alanki is a very good question, because I think outside of Sri Lanka, highest number of Sri Lankans now living in Australia. So all these expatriate Sri Lankans who are living in Australia, they have their roots back in Sri Lanka, and there are a lot of people who are planning to come back for retirement, for example, and also they are coming back for holidays. When they come for holidays, they want to live in places with the standard they used to live in Australia. And also now we have actually partner up with Prime Group, Prime Lands. We are the main agents in Australia selling prime property. So through that connection, we were offering all Sri Lankan properties, apartments, lands, and various waterfront and Colombo 7 and all these options back to Australians. And we were negotiating best payment plans and investment models for Sri Lankan expatriates lives in Australia, so then they can invest in here. And there are very attractive payment plans, like you pay 1% every month, so you don't have to pay full fees, and also initial deposit plus 1% payments that will, you can seamlessly do your investment. And most investments coming from Australia to Sri Lanka, we advise the right channel, because there's a process called IIA account, which is inward investment account types, which is supported by all the banks. But there's a perception when you send money to Sri Lanka, you can't take that back when you need it. That was a perception, but that's not true. Because if you come on the right channel to do a property investment, you can send the money, the dollars, through the IIA accounts, and then when you sell these properties and in capital plus the return, you can take it back if you need. And that process is there, and we advise all these proper channels to do the best investments back to Sri Lanka from Australia. And we have been very successful on securing very good high returns in Sri Lankan property investments as well, because you block today, but when they are delivering after 3-4 years time, you have a high capital growth on your investment, and also high rental returns as well. So we can structure your investment the way that you can benefit both the rental and capital returns as well.
And that's what you mean by a smart investment.
That is, that's our tagline. We always try to go beyond the traditional, just go and do it, but make it more effective way that it can be converted into a smarter investment.
And also, you always say, when it comes to property, you always say, why pay rent or why pay someone mortgage? Why do you say this?
Alanki, now in Australia, rental demand is very high. So, for example, if you have someone, your children going to Australia for university, there's a lot of people going for education. And the rental prices for apartments are very high. Even if you get a 2-bedroom apartment combining with 2 people, or if you get a 1-bedroom apartment, average you will be easily paying $2,000 to $3,000 a month if it is in the Melbourne CBD. But that is equivalent to you're paying somebody else mortgage, actually, because there's no gap between the rental and the mortgage payments. There's a small gap. But if somebody can have the initial investment, or can come up, secure the value of the property, you can buy it through the outright or through the loans. There are loan facilities available from Australia even for non-residents to. But if you can have the deposit, then you can buy it and let the person stay in that apartment, then pay that rent towards to yourself, not for somebody else's mortgage. This is a simple example. Let's say you have a student going to university for 4-year degree or 3-year degree. After that, most likely they'll go for TR, which is temporary residencies, until you get the permanent residency acquired. So which is easily 6-year process, right? So if you have been paying your rent to somebody else, instead you could have paid it for yourself for the entire time period. And if you think that you bought the apartment and after 6 years, if you sell at the same price, let's forget about the capital growth, but if you sell at the same price, actually you practically stayed in entire 6 years without paying any accommodation. So you can convert it into a smarter way to stay there and do your studies, and or even if someone working there, it could be the same thing. Instead of paying some rent, it can convert it into a smart investment. And we always advise locations which has a growth potential. Now, for example, apartment versus house and land, always house and lands has a high growth potential, high capital growth potential. But in apartments, we have, which is a rental yield. But if you can go into location, even for apartment, which is not easy to replicate, then you can still enjoy a capital growth. But if you go to a apartment projects, which is very common, can be easily replicated. So you buy today at one location, and then next year could be a similar one coming up again, then always your capital growth is not that great. But if you go to locations where it's not easy to replicate, still you can sell at a higher price. Even if you forget about that selling at a higher price, after 6 years, in my example, if you sell at the same price as you purchase, still your son or daughter stayed in Australia for 6 years without having to pay any the rental. So which is pure profit, pure saving for as an investment. And that kind of strategy is what we call smart
Smart
investment
investment.
strategies.
So I'm going to ask you a very obvious question. Can a foreigner invest in Australia? And if so, because I think this is a question many have.
Yeah.
And many are probably not even aware that they can, or if they can, or if they cannot. And also, obviously, there's a long procedure involved, or like technicalities, paperwork. How do you facilitate this process?
Yeah, Alanki, now we being a one-stop service provider, which we facilitate the end-to-end process. And answer to your question, Australia is one of the countries in the world which legally you can buy a property as a foreign investment. So which we have to get a government approval for that. If we are a foreigner, we have to apply for that approval, and which we call FIRB, which is Foreign Investment Review Board approval. Once you apply for that approval, the government give you the permission as a foreigner to buy a property in Australia. So the title under your name, the entire ownership will be under your name. It's not a leasehold, it's freehold property. After you, it goes to your family, and it's same as owning a property here as well. But what we need to do is to go through the approval process. There are certain limitations where you cannot, as I said before, cannot buy all properties now. It has to be brand new. You must be the first owner of the title, fresh title owner. So that's why the FIRB process is there. So through the FIRB process, based on your requirement, whether it's a apartment closer to a university or whether it's a high growth potential house and land, we can cater for that. Even a commercial investment, so warehouses, subdividable lands, and all these commercial assets, we can still buy with the government approval as a foreigner, and we can facilitate on the legal process, financing process, and identifying the right locations, identifying the right builders, because that is become a big issue with the recent financial situations in the world. Some builders went into administration, and what will happen if something happened to your the builder that you have been chosen. So we always go through that selection criteria, and also we look at the regularities where the builders with the insurance, making sure even a unfortunate situation like that, still you are covered. That background checks and research component will be done through our team to make sure our customers are getting into the right partners when you're doing into the foreign investment.
I believe your company also provides placement services so that professionals can find career or employment opportunities. This is also very important because I feel there are so many professionals who might not know how to get or reach out to the employment opportunities that they deserve.
Yeah.
What do professionals watching this need to know? How do you facilitate this process?
Alanki, now we have a separate division called Thomson Consulting. So our consulting division is the division we are opening Australian doors for corporate sector who are planning to move into diversify into Australia market. So we work as a representatives for those companies to getting to the Australian market. So we have a dedicated experience team who looking into that. With that commercial engagement, so this placement service is very unique service, which we are not saying that we're going to give everybody a job there, which we can't. But if you acquired the right talents and then placing into the right positions, we have been doing that. So, for example, if you have a accounting graduate with several years of experience here, but when you go there, unfortunately, you may not be able to find the job on the same field, but you have the experience. So, how do you break into the market to continue your career is a very challenging thing in Australia. So with our commercial consulting division, the clientele that we've been working in Australia, we were able to place people into the right positions to continue your career path. So it is a very unique and niche thing, and depending on the person's skills and qualifications and experience, we can look at and help people getting into the right positions to continue your career path.
And your services are not just limited to Australia, you also help people set up businesses in Dubai or expand services in Dubai.
Yes, basically, SA Thomson Areas, we are operating in Australia, Dubai, Singapore, and most of our back office services now happens in Sri Lanka, which also we offer Australian companies who are looking at outsourcing human capital management services. We are offering services from Sri Lanka. So it has been a very successful, even most of the legal firms, conveyancing support services, back office services, we were able to offer these services through the skills available in Sri Lanka, which is opportunity for Sri Lankans to offer their services to the international market. And at the same time, in under the consulting division, also operating supporting commercial services. And with all these things, with our Singapore, Dubai, Sri Lanka, we are cross connecting all these locations. So, for example, we are offering Dubai property investment opportunities back to Australia, and the Australian opportunities back to Dubai. And anyone is looking at now, even Sri Lanka corporate sector wanted to expand the operations to Australia, also Dubai, because that's been a central global logistics location to set up businesses. We were able to help people to set up. We do business registration, set up services, and also buying a property through the property investment process. There are so many other benefits back in Dubai, where this is a zero tax country. You don't have to pay any taxes on your capital gains, and flexible payment plans on buying property. And if you buy anything over 2 million dirhams, you get the golden visa, which allow you to get the Emirates ID, which will allow you to set up your businesses. And all these services opportunities are there. So we are actually, being a global company, we are operating in multiple international locations. We are offering the services or setting up investments on that location, and then the location will be open to all the other branches as well. So it's helping to create the international business when you are on an expansion.
So moving on to my final question, Sanjika, as we speak, there are many global challenges. How has this impacted the property market in Australia?
I think, Alanki, that is a very good question because now, as I said, globally we are going through so many different challenges. Now, if you look at recent years, now we were seeing a war between Russia and Ukraine. When you're looking at information, the entire country is almost destroyed because of that, the Ukraine. Now, the global power hubs are now talking about to stop this, which is what we entire world wants. I think we don't want wars, but that has a still a line for Australian economy because that entire country has been destroyed. Now, if the war stops, it needs to be rebuilt. So when you are rebuilding, Australia is one of the largest iron ore and natural resources provider, and which we have a huge opportunity there. And even rebuilding now, India is a power hub in the region, and they're expanding, their economy is growing at a very fast rate, and they need natural resources and uranium, platinum, so many iron ore, and that's been sourced through Australia. And so I think Australia's natural resources playing a huge role in the Australian economy, and any wars that are going to stop will have a benefit because the rebuilding upon the head. And at the same time, the agriculture sector also booming in Australia. They are using a lot of high technologies to improve the agriculture, and that to support and cater for the demand globally. And Australia is attracted by so many international students. It's a student education business is booming. With that, it attracts the skills to the country as well. And when the so many people, whether it's through student or through business migrations, comes to Australia, that will creating the need for property as well. They have to either rent or either buy. There's a place, they need a place to stay. So with all of these things, I think Australian economy has in a very good position in the coming years, and that's why it has been identified as one of the most attracted FDI, foreign direct investment locations in the world. So the investors are looking at these factors to go and do your investment in a secure, and it's a very neutral country within the global politics as well. If you look at compared to other countries, there are areas where supporting different power hubs in the world, but overall it's a faraway destination and a neutral country as well.
And relatively safe.
Relatively safe, yes.
Thank you so much for your advice to our audience on how to make a smart investment, and also thank you for being on this show and shedding light and sharing information on how investors wishing to invest in Australia or maybe even in Dubai can do so, and how they facilitate the program, the procedure actually. So I will be sharing more details on how to reach out to them in the description box below the video. If you like this content, like, comment, subscribe, leave your feedback. Thanks everyone for watching. This was another episode of Conversations with Alanki. Until next time, stay safe and take care.